Good afternoon. We are live. Thank you for being here. Those of you who will watch later, I appreciate it. We are at week 5, the penultimate session. We have just one more, and that will be next week, just in time to be done before Christmas. Thank you so much, everyone, for being a part of this group, whether you had a choice or not. But yes, today we are going to talk about our psychology. I know through the last several lives, I always tend to allude to this topic because I think it is so important when we are looking at lifestyle change, long-term change, and going beyond diets. So I can't not talk about it, but today we're going to talk about it pretty much solely. And the title, Building a Stronger Psychology, I don't want to say better because everybody has their own way, their own personality, things like that. But sometimes we can get caught up in these cycles that are not beneficial to lifestyle change. And so we want just to be stronger in some areas. Sorry, my throat is getting dry. Like I've said in the past, and maybe you are hearing it for the first time today, our brain is very complex. Our brain is designed to do the easiest thing first and most often because it's comfortable, because it doesn't require a lot of energy. Think of it as a waterfall that has carved a divot in the rock face. That water, it's going to flow that direction. And it is very difficult to get that force of water to divert to another crevice or different direction. It wants to go that same direction because that is the most comfortable, the easiest, the way that it always has done. So when you find yourself in these loops that you try to do good, you have set your mind on something and you start and you stop, and then you beat yourself up, and then we go back to old habits and you say, well, why did I even do that? It is a loop, and a negative one at that, because you can do good things. You can be motivated enough to start something new. However, if we aren't staying ahead of our psychology and understanding that we have this habit, this pathway, this crevice in our waterfall that leads you down the other direction that you don't want to go down, we have to set up plans and set up advanced plans of advancing your plans to not do that or recognize when it happens, because some of it is unconscious, some of it is not your choice. Sometimes it just happens, or life situation throws you into these situations, these loops. So understanding the brain, understanding yourself, and acknowledging, taking ownership that this is something that I do is very important in your journey. It's hard sometimes to admit that maybe you do have these negative loops, and that's okay. To say out loud, nothing bad will happen, but we want to learn from them, especially if you're really dedicated to being healthier. And it doesn't have to be weight loss. It can be getting off medication. It can be being around for a long time, or being able to do a hard task like compete in a race or something, so there's other things that we can move towards, but if our psychology, our brain, our normal patterns keep us from doing hard things, we need to reevaluate why. There's some terms that I'd like to walk through with you. One term called the bandwagon effect. I know this term because of sports, and the way that they use it in sports is everybody's doing it. Everybody's cheering for the same team, so I will too. When it comes to healthier habits, you might see that there's a trend or a fad on social media or in your close group of friends, and there's nothing wrong with getting motivated externally. There's nothing wrong with that. Something's happening, you want to be a part of it, go for it. But there's only so far that is going to motivate you. We kind of talked about in another video about external and internal motivators. So anytime you feel yourself being drawn into something externally, I want you to stop, write down how this will benefit you in the long run and personally in your life, so that when the motivation falls, because everybody's does, not everybody feels like doing the right thing every day, and that's normal, but then you can go into those internal motivators, because then you are probably more likely to reach your goals and fulfill what you want to do. So really try and go on an internal journey and finding what is going to motivate you to stick to your goals. The sad thing about these external motivators is sometimes they're negative. If you have a group of friends that is going out to eat a lot, or drinking, or just doing unhealthy habits that you don't normally participate in, external influence can also lead you the wrong path. So when you are influenced externally, reevaluate your internal motivators and how it can affect you and your goals. This next term is called the scapegoat. The scapegoat mentality, or that logic, is that we're putting blame on something. Like, I wasn't able to cook at home because there was a basketball game to go to at the school. And while those things are true, we are constantly blaming other things. This term can be used good and bad. Sometimes it feels better to blame something externally so that we don't beat ourselves up and understand that it was out of my control. I did the best that I can. And so you can spin this in a positive way, that blaming an external situation can help you stay on your path, with your goals, because it was out of your control. But if we're putting that blame on yourself, like, I wasn't strong enough, I didn't have enough willpower, I'm just not good at this, I'm not capable, then that's when we get into another negative loop and we can't break free of that. But if you can give yourself grace and patience, then you can finally break free of always being down on yourself, and understanding that sometimes it's just out of your control, and how can I make a better choice next time? So sometimes that term has like a negative connotation, but I think it is a valuable tool to have when things don't go your way and you have grace on yourself, and you can't, lose all your progress just because something happened. And so that brings me into the last, doesn't really have a term, but the last topic is going to be the all or nothing mentality. I know I've talked about this in another video, but I want to say it again, that having an all or nothing mentality is how we can lose track of our goals, because nothing in life, in this world, is all or nothing. There's always something that happens. There's always a situation that throws us off. Just like your kids can never always be healthy. They're not always going to obey. Or your business isn't always going to do good. Your church family isn't always going to be, happy all the time. There's just things in life that happen, and we have to understand that just because it isn't always the way that we want it and perceive it to be, doesn't mean that it's not helpful in our lives. So when we're talking about diets, I can give you calorie goals, I can give you macros, and then Christmas can come along. But that doesn't mean all the work that you've done up until that holiday means that you haven't made progress. And we can't just throw it all out the window because we had a bad day. And so please know that when we can get rid of that all or nothing mentality, we can move so much further, because we can work on ourselves for longer. So what I find is people will go really hard for 4 to 6 weeks, and then their motivation falls, and that's normal, but it's really hard to move past that because they feel like, I didn't see enough progress, this isn't working. And that is an all or nothing mindset, because they didn't get what they wanted in 4, 6, 12 weeks, and so then they throw it all out. But what we know is that it takes time, and redirecting that waterfall takes much more than 12 weeks. So moving past that and finding a peace in, I'm going to have some bad days, but I've done so well. I've been able to meet a lot of my goals most of the time. You're going to see results eventually. I promise. I actually have a client. I just saw her last week. Today's Thursday? Nope, I just saw her Tuesday. She has been with me since February of this year, so pretty much the whole year. And we have had our ups and downs, and she is still very committed to having appointments twice a month, to being accountable for her actions, and she is now seeing the results that she has wanted to see. And yes, it took a long time, but I'm not a miracle worker. She had to be ready to make those changes and make them for a long enough time for her body to be able to get rid of the excess weight and the insulin resistance. So, not to say that it's going to take that long for everyone, but in her situation, stressful life, all the things that were happening, it took that much time of consistency, not perfection, in order to see results. And so, yes, there was excuses along the way. Yes, there was some hiccups, but she stuck with it, and she's changed her psychology. She's like, I've had to eat out sometimes, or probably more than I want, but I know I'm going to focus on these types of food. I know that I can go for a walk at the park, and so she's changed these basic lifestyle choices. She's not once stepped into a gym this whole year, and she's still losing the weight because of the consistency and not throwing it all away because in 12 weeks she didn't lose what she wanted. So I think that's a really great example of changing your psychology and being patient and giving yourself grace, because it's not all going to happen immediately. It is going to take some time to redirect that waterfall, to redirect our brains wiring, to rewire the brain, because it is very stubborn. But with a registered dietitian, you can work together and find those things that you need rewiring, have decent goals that can really hack your brain or stay ahead of these things that you know that might happen because of your history. And so that's what I'm going to leave with you guys today. I didn't get any questions, which is fine, but I did want to add in here for anybody. I do see 2 people watching. Again, I can't tell who it is, so hi. The end of this year, we are doing a promo. DM me for more information, but if you or somebody you love would like a appointment with me or with Andy, but I'm gonna be selfish on this one, with me. We are giving gift cards at 90% off, meaning you can have an initial appointment with me for any brand new person. So it can't be anyone who's seen me before, sorry. But any brand new person, $22. All right, $22. You can't beat it. That's even off our discounted initial deal. So that's as low as you're ever going to see it. If you want to purchase that for someone you love, or you, if we've never had a face-to-face, but most people in this group has. But please, it's limit to 2 per person. But if you guys have more people and you really feel like they would come, I'm not gonna limit you. Maybe don't tell my boss. But yes, so I did want to give you that. Information. And so $22 appointments for the new year. It's a gift card. Let me know. I will send you the link, or I can just put it in this post because this is a pretty closed post. So I will add the link if you or someone you love who's not had an appointment with me would like an initial appointment. All right, I do have a question and I can see it. What if I've been eating so much less than normal and it's not my new normal, so I have to eat even less? Oh, and is now my new normal, so I have to eat even less. Okay, so this question is great because there is such thing as eating too little. However, when you are trying to find weight loss while exercising, there is a happy medium, all right? So when eating less, you have to make sure to do it consistently. It can't be less 4 days a week and then out of control 3 days a week, because in the end, it's not actually a calorie deficit. So first, you need to make sure it is consistent. Tracking is a really great way to understand what's actually happening. And the new normal, that term, a lower metabolic rate, doesn't really happen quite yet. As you lose weight and your body is smaller, you do need less energy. But if you are not losing weight, 2 things are happening. You're either still not in a calorie deficit, or you are gaining some muscle mass and losing fat mass, so your scale is staying the same. And so that's why tracking on a bioimpedance type of scale is a good idea to see if you're changing body composition. If you're noticing maybe shirts are fitting looser or pants are fitting looser, the second thing I said is probably happening. You're gaining some muscle, which takes less surface area, but it is dense, so that your scale might look not lower, but you actually have lost some fat mass. But the first one, like I said, really make sure you're actually in an appropriate calorie deficit consistently, because one or two overindulgent days can really make up all the work you've done during the week. So being consistent, and knowing your numbers is a really great way to know what calories, and why you don't feel like you're having enough results with what you're doing. I hope that answers your question. Thanks, sister. There was another question, and I read it before we started, and I think it was from Andy. Kind of just talked about quality of protein. I know in my house we're vegetarian, so it gets a lot of people concerned if you're not having like the right amount of protein or type of protein. But in our country, there are very few, like next to none, protein deficient human beings. And so the cool thing about our bodies is, first of all animal protein is complete protein. So you're not missing any amino acids or anything like that. So it has all essential amino acids. Plant protein, some are not complete proteins. However, the Lord in his goodness understood that most people eat things like beans and rice together, and those are what we call complementary proteins. So what the beans don't have, the rice has, and what the rice doesn't have, the beans have. It used to be said that you had to eat them at the same time, but it's not true. So you can actually just have them within your day, and your body is smart enough to build those complete proteins, those amino acid chains on their own. So yeah, protein is a really important fuel, especially in weight loss. But don't be afraid of the quality or the type. Really, in this country, I would say just eat a variety. If you're a meat eater, have some meat, have some plants. If you're solely plants, you might have to do some processed things like tempeh or tofu or seitan. Just kind of vary it up to have different options. Oh, tofu and soy, by the way, is a complete protein. And so is quinoa. So there are some in the plant world, but just not as common as animal proteins. So I hope that answered Andy's question from last week, I think. Anybody else? No? All right. So I'm going to put the link in this group if you want to buy an initial appointment, and then buy one for a friend if they really want to have some nutrition help, especially going into this new year. And of course, you can DM me if you have any further questions, if you'd like to keep it private. So thank you so much, guys. I can't believe this is week 5. Hopefully you guys are getting some good information from this. I only want what's best for you all and to help in this journey. And so let me know if you have any questions. Bye, guys.